Leeds International School Form 5 Lower First Mid-Term English Literature To Kill a Mockingbird Chapter 22. In these chapters, you will be able to distinguish characteristics among characters and identify their significance, emphasize the characters and place themselves with the characters' shoes, recognize new vocabulary and understand its usage and meaning. Yes, now we are going to start the discussion of these chapters 22-23. Our first chapter is chapter 20. Okay, let's move to our next slide to see the things that I have taken to discuss with you all today. Yes, I'm going to explain the points, right, what happens here. Therefore, you all have to listen well, right. The major points, they have been included on this slide, right. The rest of the things I'm going to explain you. Therefore, dear students, please listen well, right. In this chapter 20, we can see that Mr. Dolphus Raymond, right, he reveals that he is drinking from a paper sack, right. He offers Jill that paper sack and asks him drink with that, yes, paper sack, paper bag. Jill slurps and he finds that liquid, it's not any liquor, right? It's not any liquor and it isn't alcoholic, but it's only Coca-Cola, right? Is that clear? Then Mr. Raymond, right, he tells the children that he pretends, right, he pretends to be drunk to provide others means other white people in that Maycock County with an explanation for his lifestyle. That's why he drinks. When in fact he simply prefers black people to whites, right? Is that clear? Then to whom does he like most? Black people or white people? Yes, black people. When Jill and Scout return to the courtroom, Atticus is making his closing remarks. He has finished going over the evidence and now makes a personal appeal to the jury. He points out that the prosecution has produced no medical evidence. Right? No medical evidence of the crime has presented, only the shaky testimony, right? Only the shaky testimony of two unreliable witnesses. Then moreover he explains, right, the physical evidence suggests that Bob Ewell not Tom Robinson beat Myla. Then who has beat Myla? Is that Tom Robinson or Bob Ewell? That is Bob Ewell. Then he offers his own version of events describing how Myla, lonely and unhappy, committed the unmentionable act of lusting after a black man and then concealed her shame by assuming of him rape after being caught. With these points, right, Atticus, he begs the jury to avoid the state's assumption that all black people are criminals. That is the assumption of the jury. And he asks to avoid that and just to talk for what? Talk for justice, right? And he begs to deliver justice by freeing Tom Robinson. As soon as this Atticus finishes his speech, Calpurnia, she comes into the courtroom. That's the summary of this chapter 20. As you are listening to this explanation, I want you to go through that book, To Kill a Mockingbird, and refer the relevant chapter as well. Got it? Okay. Yes, now we are going to learn about the incidents of this chapter 21. Okay, listen well, right? In this chapter, Calpurnia, she hands Atticus a note telling him that his children, Scout and Jem, right, they haven't been home since noon. After hearing this, Mr. Underwood, he says that Jem and Scout are in the coloured balcony and have been there since just after 1 in the afternoon. Then Atticus tells them to go home and have supper. Then these two, right, they beg to be allowed to hear the verdict, right? They beg to be allowed to hear the verdict. Who are they here? Jem and Scout. Then Atticus says that they can return after supper, though he knows that the jury will likely have returned before then. Somehow then Calpurnia, she goes home with this Jem, Scout and their friend Dale. Right? After eating quickly, they return to find, yes, they come to the court just to find, right, once they return there, they find that still jury, right, now they are working with their decision making, right? They find, right, the jury is still out and the courtroom still full. Right, here we can notice that Jem, right, he is confident of victory. Victory of whom? Victory of, yes, his father's side and to be freed, that Tom Robinson. That's what this Jem, he thinks, right? But Dale, right, what is he doing here? He is sleeping. Then finally, what happens? Can anyone guess? Yes, it is delivered that Tom Robinson, right, he is the culprit. Then the courtroom, right, with that verdict, the courtroom begins to empty, and as Atticus goes out, everyone in this coloured balcony, black people, right, everyone rises in a gesture of respect. Though that Atticus, right, he couldn't win the case, at least being a white man, he has taken the side of right, the side of black people, and he has talked for justice. Because of that, those black people, they wanted to show their respect to this Atticus. Is that clear? Did you understand it? Okay, good. Okay, let's learn what happens in this chapter 22. That night, after giving the verdict mentioning that Tom Robinson, right, he is the culprit, then this Jem, right, he cries, railing against the injustice of the verdict, right? He doesn't like it. He knows that verdict, right, it's unfair. Then next day, Maycomb's black population, black people, they sent an avalanche, right, of food to the Finch household to show their gratitude towards whom? Yes, Atticus, right. Then outside, Miss Stephanie Crawford, right. Miss Stephanie Crawford is gossiping with Mr. Avery and Miss Modi, right. She tries to question Jem and Scout about the trial, right. They want to know what has happened in the court. Then Miss Modi, right, she rescues the children by inviting them for some cake. Then Jem complains that his illusions, right, what he thinks about this Maycomb, right, they have been shattered. It's because of that wrong verdict, right. He tells that, right, furthermore he tells that he has thought that these people, right, they are the best in the world, but having seen the trial, he doesn't think so anymore. Right, then Miss Modi, she points out that there were some people who tried to help, like Judge Taylor, who appointed Atticus to the case instead of the regular public defender. Then she adds that juries staying out so long, right, it's a sign of progress in race relations. As the children leave Miss Modi's house, right, this Miss Stephanie, right, she runs over to tell them that Bob Ewell, right, he accosted their father. Who is their father? Atticus that morning. How? Spat on him and swore revenge. Then from whom did they get that news? From Miss Stephanie. Is that clear? That is the end of this chapter 22. I hope that, right, with the explanations of these chapters 20 to 22, you have understood well what happens in each chapter. It isn't enough just to watch these and listen to the explanations. You have to move to your book and read the relevant chapters. Is that clear? Then after that there are some questions. You have to answer those well. Okay? Then wish you good luck for all your studies. Okay. Yes, we have moved to questions from those chapters, chapter 22, 23. Okay? On 3 slides, you have questions today. You all have to go through these questions and yes, try to write, right? Try to answer these questions with correct answers, right? All these questions, right? They are from those 3 chapters. Is that clear? Okay, let's move to the questions on this slide. Okay, you all have to read this with me, right? Who is Mr. Dolphus Raymond? What did Mr. Raymond tell Dear to do with this role? Why had Dolphus Raymond made himself into a town outcast? What does Dear think about the case? Yes, we have moved to the rest of the questions. Let's move, right? What did Scout say Atticus did that he usually doesn't do? What does Atticus describe as Myla's offense in his summation speech to the jury? Why was Calpurnia going down the aisle? Right? How do we pronounce this word? A-I-S-L-E? It's pronounced as I'll, right? Though that S is there, that letter it's silent. Okay? How do you pronounce it? I'll, right? I'll. Is that clear? Okay. The last question on this slide is, what did Reverend Sykes say when James said he thought they could win the case? Yes, these are the last questions from those 3 chapters, right? What did Scout say about the jury? What was the verdict? Who was the most upset about the jury's decision? The last one is, what were all of the black people sending Mr. Finch? Yes, this is the end of today's teaching, and for me, it's time to say goodbye. Thank you.